Hey everyone, welcome to my TED Talk. I'm just kidding. This is the Polyglot Gathering. So if you're watching this, you're either watching it live or you might be watching a recording because my presentation, I got changed from Sunday to today, which is Saturday. And so it wasn't updated on the program on the website. So you might have found this afterwards and are watching the recording, but that's okay. If you were able to find this at all, you have a lucky star in your corner. So this is the first time that I've been at the Polyglot Gathering. I only heard about it maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I heard about from Professor Arguez in his Language Academy. If you don't know who Professor Arguez is, he's an accomplished polyglot, and he started a virtual language academy online last year. If you want to learn more about that, I would encourage you to watch Sean Dent's talk that he gave. He gave a presentation, I think, yesterday. So you can look up the recording of that and watch that to get more information on that. But anyway, yeah, Professor Arguez encouraged me to give this presentation today. And yeah, I thought I would share some information with you. Something I wanted to try, though, was I wanted to see if, what languages everyone's learning. So if you could put the languages that you are learning in the chat. I have it on my phone, so hopefully I'll be able to see what you say. But as for me, the languages that I'm learning right now actively are, I learn 5 languages every day. I learn Chinese, Korean, Spanish, German, and Arabic. And those are the languages that I'm doing at this time. There are some other languages that I use on a daily basis, but I'm not actively studying them. For example, I do use Japanese a lot to talk to my friends in Japan. And I also use French to learn, for example, Korean. If you can see this, I have the Asamil in French for Korean. So I use French passively to learn that, but I don't consider it to be an active language because I'm not actively studying French. So anyway, yeah, let's see. I see we got Astrid learning, wow, so many languages, a lot of them similar to me. Got Chinese, Korean, Japanese, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, and Swedish. That's great. I especially like that you have the big 3 for East Asia: Chinese, Korean, and Japanese. That's so great. And we have Hana, French and Ukrainian intensively now, and still studying Marquesan. I don't know what that is. Spanish. That's great. Luke, we have German, modern and medieval, Old French, Old Norse, Latin, Mandarin. Yeah, I definitely like that you're studying Mandarin. What a great language. And yeah, we're studying Arabic together in the academy, so let's have fun doing that. We got Mariola with French, Timothy featuring a bunch of languages, including Ukrainian. That's great. Any effort that you put towards the language, I think is great, because why not? Astrid with Czech, Hana, Marquesas Islands, Polynesia. Oh, wow, that's great. It's so nice to be able to learn a language that's a little bit more, that's smaller, that's not as widely learned, because yeah, these languages, they deserve to be studied too. So I definitely appreciate you for doing that. So anyway, before I get into my presentation, I wanted to make a kind of disclaimer, which is that, if language learning is climbing up the mountain to get to the top, to get the peak of fluency, there are many ways to go up the mountain. So what I'm saying is today I'm going to present some information to you. And this is information that I think is probably the most efficient, the quickest way to get to fluency. But at the end of the day, the path that's going to work best for you depends on you. I don't know who you are. I don't know your unique background. So what works for you is going to be based more on sort of what you're about. So what I encourage you to do is I encourage you to listen today and take those things which you think might be useful, add them, test them out. And if they work, keep them. If not, then throw them away. That's perfectly okay too. But yeah, this is just one path up the mountain. There are other paths that are equally valid. And I'm not saying this way is even superior to those paths because, hey, you might like the more scenic route. I don't know. So yeah, what I want to start with is the forgetting curve. So I'm going to put that up on the screen here. And this is a very important graph. You can see that we have time on the x-axis on the bottom in days, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days. We have the retention rates on the y-axis on the side here for memory. So what does this mean? It means that when you learn something for the first time, you basically have 100% retention rate in that instant when you learn it. But as time goes on, you begin to forget more and more of the material. So let's say you learn 100 words at one time. In one day, maybe you'll only remember, say, 70 or 80 of them, and you forget 20 or 30 of them. But if you waited 2 days, you would forget more. Maybe you would only remember 50, 60 of them, forget, 40, 50 of them, and so on and so forth. So what can you do then to remember these words? And by the way, the reason I'm bringing this up is because vocabulary learning is such a big part of language learning. If you want to become really fluent, you might need to learn like 20,000 words, and that's a lot. So the way that we can most optimally learn words, that's going to help us a lot to get to fluency. So here's another forgetting curve. We got days or time on the x-axis again, retention rate on the side, the y-axis. And for this one, we have review in it. So as you go along, you forget items over time, but let's say after one day you review it. That puts you back at 100% retention rate. And then as you go along, you might wait 2 more days till day 3 before you review. And that puts you back at 100%. And then maybe you wait 3 more days till day 6. It puts you back at 100%. So what's interesting about this is that the more times you review, the flatter this line gets. So what that means is the more time is put in between each review before you have to review it again to get back up to 100% retention rate. So what this means is that in order to study vocabulary in an optimal way, you need to study it at precisely that point when it hits down here at the bottom so that you can push it back up to 100%. If you do it too soon, you could have waited longer before you reviewed it. So you're wasting time because you're reviewing too much. And if you wait too long, then your retention rate goes so low that maybe you would even forget it. And then you would have to start the whole process over. So what is the easiest way to, take care of reviews when you have like thousands of words that you need to memorize or learn? Well, the easiest way to do this is to use a computer. So how do we use the computer to do this? Well, there are flashcard programs called Anki, for example. I'm going to be going into Anki, which is probably the most popular spaced repetition system software. And I'm actually going to show Anki later in this presentation. But yeah, I like Anki because it's free and everyone uses it, and it has a lot of cool parts of it, which I'm going to go over. But the basic principle of Anki is that it's a flashcard program. It'll show you the flashcard. When you see the flashcard, you can grade it. I think from 1 to 4. like number 1, 2, 3, or 4. If you hit 4, that means you remembered it like perfectly. If you forgot it completely, you hit 1. Depending on what you pressed, it's going to show you the flashcard again in a different period of time. So if you remembered it perfectly the first time, it might not show it to you again until a day later. And then if you remember it perfectly that time, it might wait 2 or 3 days. And then if you remember it perfectly that time, it might wait 4 or 6 days. If you forget the flashcard and you mark it as forgotten, then it restarts the process. It'll show it to you again until you get it. And then it'll show it to you again in a day. And if you get it right at that time, it'll show it to you again in 2 days, 4 days, and so on. If you forget it, it'll repeat itself. Then it'll show it to you again in a day. So that's kind of the basic process of how it works. Now, this is important because, I was telling Professor Arguez about this in the Language Learning Support Group, which is the class at the Language Academy. I highly recommend it if you're learning a language. But he said to me, he said, "Hey, Robbie, I've learned all these languages. I never used flashcards. I never used the spaced repetition system. I just reread my books. I reread my material. Like, why would I have to use an SRS, the spaced repetition system? Why would I have to use Anki? Why can't I just reread the material?" And yeah, the reason for this is because if you look at this curve, when you're rereading material, there's no control of when the material is presented to you. So it's just kind of random. You're just kind of randomly looking at the material. So it might be possible that you see one word, on day 0, but you might not see it again until like day 6, at which point you will have already forgotten it, and then you will have wasted that time. Or the other thing is maybe you see the word too soon again, and then that's not the optimal time to review it, to move it back to full retention, because you could have waited a little longer before it decayed a bit more so that you could save time that way. So yeah, if you're just rereading, you're kind of randomly looking at the words. The power or the genius of Anki is that's all controlled. It gives you the words at the exact points that you need to review it in order to optimally remember it and memorize it. So yeah, that's why, Anki is more powerful than just rereading the material. So something I want to go over now is I want to show you something called VocabTracker. And VocabTracker is a website. It's free. If you've ever heard of Link, L-I-N-G-Q, this is kind of a Link clone, but it's great because it's free, whereas Link is paid, so you can save some money. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can use VocabTracker to generate flashcards automatically so you can save time. You don't have to spend as much time creating the flashcards. So what I'm going to do is you can choose your language here on VocabTracker. They have all these languages. I'm going to do Spanish. So we go to imports, and I'm going to import some text from a book we're reading in the Language Academy in the Spanish conversation class. It's called La Muerte de Artemio Cruz. And yeah, so if we just, let's put it, let's make Polyglot Gathering. Put it in there, open it. So this is basically what VocabTracker shows. And the great thing about this is you can click on a word to see. And yeah, it also speaks the word, which is kind of nice. You can always turn that off. But if you click on these words, it's going to give you the meaning in English. So this is a good way to learn words. You can see here that some of the definitions aren't going to be the best. Like this means hands, but it doesn't actually give the definition for hands here. So just be careful about that. Sometimes the dictionary is not always the greatest on VocabTracker. But anyway, I'm just going to click on some words to generate this. Once you have a vocab list like this, it saves it like in this list. And then what you can do is you can select all the words and you can export them. So when you come here, the flashcard that you want to make is going to be close, which I'll talk about in a minute, with the definition and then the word in column 2. You want to export that. Then you have Anki. Let me see. So I'm going to create a new deck for us called Polyglot Gathering Spanish. And let's import the file that we just got. So we have this. We want to do it to this deck, comma for separation. And yeah, now we import. I just added all the cards, and this is what Anki looks like. So this is a flashcard. Basically, it shows you the sentence with a blank. And this is called a closed deletion flashcard. Closed deletion means that you have the phrase, the sentence, and then you have a blank for the material that you're trying to learn, what you're trying to recall. And you see here, I have a hint for what that word is. I have the definition in English. So yeah, when I see this, I'm going to read the sentence, and I'm going to try to recall what word this is. I think it's abiertas. Let's see. Yeah, it's abiertas. So in this case, because I knew it right away, I would mark it as easy. If I didn't know it, I would mark it as again. So we have, you go through the flashcards, you can create them, and it's going to show it to you on different intervals. But what I want to talk about here is why closed deletion is the most powerful flashcard type for learning vocabulary. Because think about it, there are many ways that you could learn vocabulary, learn words, and make flashcards. A popular way is just to put kind of the foreign word on one side and put the English word on the other side. But I think, the reason why closed deletion is the most powerful is because it forces you to actively recall the material. And research that they've done on learning, on remembering, on memorization, shows that something about actively recalling the material, which is sort of stressing your minds to bring the material into it, to remember it, something about this process leads to the best rate of retention of vocabulary. It far exceeds just like, having the language, the foreign language word on one side and English on the other side, or any other kind of flashcard type you can think of. So that's one of the reasons why you want to do closed deletion, because you're going to get the most bang for your buck in terms of using these flashcards. So now what I want to talk about is my personal experience learning 500 Arabic words in just 5 days in preparation for my Arabic class at Professor Arguelles Language Academy. So, Luke, I know you're watching this presentation. You're in the Arabic class as well. You might have remembered early on we had a review session coming up, and I wanted to remember all the words in the Asamil textbook for the chapters that we had covered. And I did this process that I just showed you. I got all the words into VocabTracker. I made the flashcards. I put them onto Anki, and I saw that I had 500 flashcards to learn. And I only had 5 days until the class. So I had to learn roughly 100 words a day. Now, there's no way I would have been able to have memorized 100 words in a day for 5 days, just like repeating the words after each other or trying to connect them by sounding them out or something like this. The way that I was able to do it was I used mnemonics. And what are mnemonics? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some actual mnemonics that I used when I was learning those 500 words. So, for example, Nukud means money, and I imagine the US nuked other countries to steal their money. Amil means to carry, so I imagine the waiter carrying a meal to me. Ageless means to sit. I imagine someone sitting in a magical seat and becoming ageless. Muri means comfortable, so I visualized, I remembered muri being impossible in Japanese. So I imagine my Japanese friend Ebi lying on his futon in his room where we used to hang out, and him not being able to get comfortable, saying over and over again muri, which I might add is pretty close to the truth of what we did back then. And then, amal means to work. I imagined working at a mall near my house. So something to realize about this is that a lot of these examples are either very colorful or they're very personal to me, or they make connections with, like, for example, I have muri, which is a word in Japanese, and I connected it to a real experience that I had living in Japan before. So the more personal you can make it, the more visual you can make it, the crazier you can make it, the easier it is going to stick in your mind. And the reason why it sticks in your mind is because the brain or the mind is more used to dealing with visual information. And that's why it's powerful to do this, because you're making an image in your head and you're making a connection that kind of makes sense in its own way, if you know what I mean. So by making this image in your head, it allows your mind to latch onto it better. Whereas if you just said, say, nukud, money, and you just repeat that in your head a few times, you would probably forget it, because our brains aren't set up to just learn, random sounds and put them together like that. But it is set up to see visual information. So yeah, that's how I learned 500 words in 5 days in Arabic for the class. I went through every word and I made a mnemonic like this for each word. And that's how I was able to remember them. Now, there's something very important to say at this point. When I learned the 500 words, this is kind of like a parlor trick, because anything that comes to you quickly, you can also lose very quickly. So just the fact that I learned 500 words in 5 days, I learned that very quickly. If I didn't review, then I would probably forget all of it. I'd probably not remember a single word. So then what do you have to do? You have to review. And what is the best way to review? Well, the best way to review is to use a spaced repetition system like Anki. So that's what I've been doing. I've been using Anki over the last month or two, and Anki has been showing me each of these words in the sentences with closed deletion flashcards, so that I can learn the material in the most optimal way and in the shortest time possible. So yeah, I think now is this a good time to take questions. So if you have any questions, you can ask, you can put them in, and I'll be happy to answer them. But while I'm waiting for some questions, I'll say this. If you're learning a language and you want to take it to the next level, I highly recommend you take a look at Professor Argue's Language Academy. And in particular, I recommend that you look at this class here, the Language Learning Support Group. The reason for this is because in this class, we spend an hour every week. It's on Wednesdays in the afternoon, US time, evening, European time. And we just spend an hour just talking about how to learn languages, overcoming our obstacles, finding out new strategies to learn languages. And it's so great because everybody who is in this class has taken their language learning to levels above where they were when they first began, me included. I'm definitely studying and learning a lot more just by being in this class. And the reason for that is because humans are social creatures. You end up doing the things that the people around you are doing. So it is very important that you surround yourself with the types of people that you want to become like. So I think that's one of the reasons why the Polyglot Gathering is so great, because it allows you to be with like-minded people and kind of you can have them rub off on you, which will increase your desire to learn languages. So something about the Language Learning Support Group is that we spend an hour each week. I like to think of it as going to the gym, except for language learning. You know, you go to the gym each week in order to increase your physical fitness, to get stronger, and it's healthy. It's healthy for you. So I like to think of Language Learning Support Group as being the gym for my mind and my language learning. You know, I kind of, I just go once a week, and that inspires me and it helps me get over whatever obstacles are in my way so that I can keep moving forward and I can keep learning languages. So yeah, let's see. Questions from Astrid. We have in Korean, many words sound very similar, but they include sounds that give me no mental association at all. How would you go about it trying to memorize those kinds of words? Right. So, you know, many languages are going to have sounds that do not exist in your native language or in English or some language you've already learned. So the best thing that you can do is you need to make some kind of approximation. So you're learning Korean. For example, the Korean R sound is pretty different. So you'd want to find something that approximates the R sound in Korean, and this can be an image. For example, maybe in your head, you like to think of the Korean R with the I don't know, the word red. Maybe you just want to imagine red every time the Korean R comes up. And so every time you have a word that has the Korean R in it, you can imagine red as part of your mnemonic. And that could be a way that you can learn words and, you know, be able to work that into the stories that you tell yourself. Something I want to do right now actually is, I forgot to mention, you know, a lot of people, they say to me, they say, hey, Robbie, like, it's great that you do these mnemonics, but it's so much effort, it's so much work. Like, what if I'm too lazy to make mnemonics? I mean, if you're too lazy, that's fine, because we have our good friend ChatGPT who can help us out. So, yeah. You know, a lot of people have been talking about ChatGPT recently. You've probably heard of ChatGPT. But something I like to do is I like to use ChatGPT to come up with mnemonics. So if you want, you can put a word in the chat. Give me a foreign word and the English definition. Put that in the chat. If I see it later, I will actually put it through this process and we can see what it comes up with. But for right now, I'm going to just like use something off the top of my head. So what you want to do is you want to use GPT-4 if you have access to that. If you don't, you can just use 3.5, which is the default. And so let's see, let me think, what word should we do? I haven't done this, so I'm actually curious what's going to come up. So let's say, please help me make a mnemonic for, let's say, aka, which means red. I'm not even going to tell it the language that's in. So please help me make a mnemonic for aka, which means red. Let's see what that gives us. Okay, so a ketchup avalanche. And this is a mnemonic that uses the first letter of each word to represent aka and associates the color red with ketchup. So yeah, that's actually pretty clever. And that's another way that you can use mnemonics by something like using the first letters of the words to help you remember what's going on. Let me think. What else? Let's do how about this one? Please help me make a mnemonic for piscina, which means pool. It means pool in Spanish. So this is interesting. Again, it uses the first letter of each word. It says penguins in swimsuits can inspire new aquatics. I think that's a little too, how do I say this? Too wordy. You know, there's probably something simpler we can do. So I'm going to say, don't use the first letter of each word. Give me an image so I can remember the meaning. Let's see if that does it. So it says, imagine a school of fish swimming in synchronized patterns within a crystal clear pool. The word piscina resembles piscine, which is related to fish. This mental image of fish in a pool can help you associate the word piscina with its meaning pool. So yeah, that's not bad. I actually hadn't thought of that, piscine and piscina. That's good. Let's do one more. Let me think. So let's do delicious in Chinese, which is 好吃. So please help make me a mnemonic for 好吃, which means delicious. So it says, imagine a happy chef sounds like how. Stirring a pot of mouth-watering chili sounds like 吃 in a bustling kitchen. The tempting aroma fills the room, making everyone's mouths water in anticipation. This mental image of a happy chef cooking delicious chili can help you associate the word 好吃 with its meaning delicious. So yeah, that's I like that. That's and that's kind of clever. That could be a way that you remember that 好吃 means delicious in Chinese. So let me see. One question that's come up from Luke. Are you familiar with Stu J. Raj's Minecraft? A lot of the recent weekly sessions have involved ChatGPT for language learning. The short answer is no, I'm not familiar with Minecraft. However, I'm sure that Stu has many, many clever things to say with ChatGPT and language learning. You know, what I just showed you here with the mnemonics, this is just like the beginning of how you can use ChatGPT to help aid you in learning a language. So yeah, that's about it. My voice is starting to fail me, so I'm gonna end it here. But yeah, my name is Robbie Kunz. If you want to connect with me because you had a question that you didn't get to ask or you're watching the recording, you can either message me on Instagram, which is my name, Robbie Kunz, or you can email me, which is robbiekunz@gmail.com. Again, I strongly encourage you to join the language learning support group at the Language Academy on Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. That's in the evening, European time. Astrid just asked, give the exact address of the language learning support group. You can find it at alexanderarguez.com. If you go there, it's going to look like this. Just click on Academy. It's going to take you here. And then you can hit apply now to apply. If you apply, I think there's a field for like referral. You can just type in my name, Robbie, or you can even use my last name, Robbie Kunz, and just put that in the referral space so they know that you came through this. And yeah, the other thing is if you can't remember how to spell Professor Arguez's last name, you can just Google Alexander Virtual Language Academy, and it should come up as the first option, the first result on the Google search page. So you can just click on this and it'll take you here. But yeah, you know, besides the language learning support group, they have German classes where you read German texts and discuss them, Old Norse, Latin, French, Spanish. They also have great books of the West and great books of the East, as well as other classes like comparative historical religions, Path of the Polyglots. Yeah, I highly recommend you go check it out. If you have any interest in language learning, just go check it out. You might really enjoy it. So that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed the talk. Again, if you want to get in contact with me, Robbie Kunz is my name. And I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Thank you so much. I see we're still going, but yeah, that's the end of the presentation. So if you want to get in contact with me, you can message me, you know, somewhere here. Thank you again.